Hello and welcome to another episode of Consensus with Canonizer. My name is Jim Bennett, and I am here with the mighty Canonizer Council, Brent Alsop and Kelly Cassidy. How are both of you?
Good.
I am really excited. I'm wearing a sweater. It's crisp fall air. We have autumn decorations and a government shutdown to celebrate.
And snow on the mountains. Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit more about this government shutdown that we're celebrating, Kelly?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and show on the Canonizer website. We have something there on the front page slider. Gives a little history of it. Here we go. Nice photo. So shut it down. Shut it all down. The government is shut down yet again. So government shutdowns are a rather recent invention. Starting in the 70s, Congress passed a new budget act that said how budgets work. And after a attorney general looked at the law, he said, all right, here's the deal. If you don't have a budget then by this date, then you have a government shutdown. So
that wasn't determined by Congress. That was the Attorney General.
Well, it was a law passed by Congress that the Attorney General said, because of this law, if we don't have a budget, we have to be shut down. So Congress passed it. The executive department enforced it. So they began to happen. I think in the 70s, I have down here 80s, but most of the early ones during the Carter administration were just kind of short hours, days. But there have been boatloads since then. There have been, I think we're now in our 11th shutdown. There were 5 during the Carter years, 8 during the Reagan years, basically every year of his presidency. George H.W. Bush had 1, Clinton had 2, Obama had 1. The first Trump administration had 1, which happened to be the longest of 35 days. And now we're in another one that, according to betting markets, is going to be another equally long one. Just politically, it's kind of interesting that of all those times, it doesn't matter who's in the White House or who's controlling Congress, the Republicans get blamed for it every time, which I just think is a fascinating look at people's views on politics in general. It would be easy to say, oh, it's always the president's fault or it's always Congress's fault. But that's not the case. It's been the Republicans' fault in public opinion polls all along. So I guess the question that we can build consensus on is, are government shutdowns good or bad? And what can be done? Because there's a lot of people that rely on government services that aren't going to be able to be done right now. That's my little intro, Jim.
Well, Brent, do you have any comments on that intro?
I just had a question. I've created a new subcamp because I believe that budget should be determined by consensus and popularity. The more support you get for whatever, you should upfront determine this is our budget for the year, and then that specifies the budget. Then how that gets sliced up is the most popular items get the most money. And so it becomes a matter of trying to recruit people to your camp and the more people you recruit to your camp, the more money your camp gets, type of a stuff. But Kelly mentioned that was already tried or that was the original plan or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to pick Kelly's brain on more of what are some possible issues with that.
I don't know that I have any issues with what you would like. It seems to be a perfectly sound, ideal way of doing it, but we're dealing with Washington, D.C., which doesn't necessarily run on sound, good ideas. Right now, to pass this budget, you have to get 60 votes from the Senate. It's passed the House of Representatives. and there are 55 votes in the Senate, but it needs 5 more to pass. So, like, I don't know if the word cave is the right way to say this, but somebody needs to change their mind on what they expect or what they want out of government. And is it going to be 53 Republicans, or is it going to be
5 Democrats?
3 more Democrats?
3 more, yeah.
Well, from my perspective, looking at this, it's really interesting. This one seems unprecedented in that the president is leaning into it, although he's kind of he's never consistent and doesn't really know what he's doing. But he spent a lot of time saying, this is great. This gives me an opportunity to shut down all of these Democrat agencies and fire all of these people. And I just love a government shutdown. And that is his position up until he sees the polling that shows him that Republicans are being blamed for the shutdown. And now it's, oh, well, geez, the Democrats need to get off the dime. We really want to reopen the government. And in every other shutdown that I can remember, there was at least the pretense of concern for the public. That doesn't seem to be the case here at all. What we're seeing is just raw political maneuvering. And it's entirely cynical, and it's entirely disrespectful of, the president is also saying we may not pay furloughed workers. He's sort of hanging that over everybody's head. I'm flying to Chicago tomorrow, and I'm told that there are huge delays because air traffic controllers aren't going into work, and there are towers that are completely shut down. We're just barreling ahead, and nobody really is paying attention to the consequences. And the Democrats insist that this is to allow certain Obamacare subsidies to continue, and Republicans insist with absolutely no evidence, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're saying, well, this is because they're trying to give $1.5 trillion in benefits to illegal aliens.
Yeah, that's
and it's like, you keep saying that. There isn't any evidence that is actually true.
and
There
no,
was something funny, and I'll try and find the clip, but there have been 2 Democrats who have said, that's silly. It's only going to be less than 5% that'll be going to illegal aliens. So like there are Democrats that have acknowledged that some of that money would be going to pay for health care for people who are here illegally, but I don't think anybody really thinks it's all 1.3 trillion. The Democrats also are in a hard place to make it political, because the Obamacare subsidies are really impacting the federal budget, as healthcare is wont to do. Private insurance rates are going up. I'm going to make up a number because I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty dramatic, like 30% this year over last year.
Mhm.
And so the government, the Democrats, and are trying to keep the Obamacare copays substantially less than what the private sector copays are. So that, like, there are multiple sides to this, but there does seem to be a lot of agreement that it is the healthcare subsidies that are what's in question on this.
do any illegal aliens get health care? Because I know my understanding is the law is that they can't get any health care benefits. But is
Well,
that the case?
they do in this sense. There is only one way in which they would get it, and the only one way where that 5% number would make any sense. And that is that by law, anybody that shows up at an emergency room gets treated. period. And if there's an emergency, they don't ask for your citizenship status. They don't ask about your ability to pay. They treat you and they deal with all of that afterwards. And so that is the only way in which illegal aliens can get any kind of federally subsidized health care. And it is such a vanishingly small amount of the money that's being talked about that it's wildly disingenuous to say that this is all about money for illegal aliens. And so, I mean, Kelly, you're right. There are a lot of different sides to the underlying issues, but with regard to the shutdown, we're not really debating health care. Republicans haven't offered any kind of coherent health care plan to replace Obamacare, despite promising every 2 weeks that it's 2 weeks away. I mean, President Trump 9 years ago initially said that the Republican health care plan is 2 weeks away. And he said that numerous times in the campaign in 2024. He said that he had the concepts of a plan. There is absolutely, I mean, if you want to complain about the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, great. Let's have that discussion. I think there are a number of different things that can be done and should be done to reform how healthcare is administered in this country. But we're not having that discussion. We're having a sideshow discussion. We're having Republicans saying, well, we want to, Republicans essentially lying about what this money is being spent for, when in fact they just are not comfortable with the amount of money that's being put forward in a subsidy, but they don't want to say that because that's unpopular. That doesn't poll as well as, scapegoating illegal aliens for everything. But it's amazing to me that it does not seem to be working, because ironically, where the Republicans have the best argument, which is that they need 60 votes to reopen the government, and the Democrats are withholding those votes, so the Democrats really are the ones shutting this down. I think that's absolutely true. Yet that is the argument that is falling flat with the voters. The voters look at it and say, well, you've got the presidency, you've got the House, you've got the Senate, you've got the Supreme Court. You're in charge of everything. Why can't you keep the government open? And they're not really interested in the sort of parliamentary explanation for why that's the case. So it's just really bizarre to watch this shutdown unfold in a way where everything we're talking about really has nothing to do with anything that matters. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. And I think that's in general a problem that Republicans have on every topic. The Democrats are much better at about the emotional arguments, and the Republicans are better at the factual arguments.
You're saying that Chuck Schumer is really good at emotional arguments?
I think the Democrats in general. Chuck Schumer, I think his days are numbered in the Senate. So,
well, you watch these guys. You watch Schumer and Jeffries go in front of the press, and you just go, really? This is the best the Democrats have to offer for leadership? It's
one of my favorite quotes of the shutdown has been on Andrea or AOC. I'm not going to try and pronounce her name because I'm going to mess it up right now. She recorded herself saying, I'm being blamed for the shutdown, and I'll tell you right now, my door is always open. If the Senate wants to come talk to me, I will negotiate with them. And so I think AOC is not only I think she is the de facto and de jure leader of the Democratic Party right now. Which is a little side issue, but the whole thing, it comes down to who's going to change their vote. Right now, 3 Democrats are voting with Republicans. Can there be more? Are Republicans going to bail and go and support a Democratic proposal? That seems very unlikely. Are they going to be able to come up with a middle of the road thing where they say, vote on this budget, and we will schedule a vote in a month to talk about Obamacare subsidies, which seems to be the most reasonable and fair way to do this.
Well, but my understanding is that the subsidies disappear without an express renewal. So that means, okay, so you go a month without those subsidies, and then we vote on the subsidies.
Yeah, I will defer to you on that. I am not sure that's the case, but I will say okay.
That sounds right to me.
I mean, I'm not sure either.
I'm looking at a CNN story that I pulled up here earlier, and it's saying what I said. It gives 4 options to end it. Democrats fold, a deal for future Obamacare debate. Okay, I just said that. And it talks about a Republican pollster, Tony Fabrizio, who has urged the party to extend the Obamacare subsidies because they're popular. And then it says if Obamacare subsidies are the most likely concessions, maybe there's some other concessions that Republicans can put in. And then it lists the least likely scenario is Republicans cave.
Well, is that true though?
I'm just reading what they said. We can debate that. There are no precedents for that happening.
Them caving is basically them coming up with a new proposal that gives the Democrats what they want, right?
I think so.
Because there's no Democrat proposal that they could jump to, is there?
The Democrats have put forward a budget, and it was voted down. I think it was 55 to 45.
Oh, so caving would mean jump to that and support that.
Yeah. So more Democrats are supporting the Republican, and the same Democrats are not supporting the Democrat proposal. So,
well, the big issue from my perspective is where the polling is going, because that seems to be the only thing that matters to Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump sees his numbers continue to sag, he is not above turning on a dime and rising above principle and completely caving. I mean, the idea, we're treating this as if we are in a normal sort of circumstance where regular considerations are all that matter. And we're counting votes in Congress when, in fact, the only vote that matters, particularly on the Republican side, is Donald Trump. If Donald Trump sees this continuing to do damage to him politically, he will say, make the deal, open the government, and we'll deal with that later. I mean, I think it's much easier to get Donald Trump to cave. I'm very...
I think if that happens, though, you're going to have the reverse issue in the House, because there are some very strong budget hawks in the House of Representatives, and the Republican majority is so slim that they won't pass that, because it happen in other things. So I'm reading it, and it does talk about healthcare subsidies, but it also talks that some of the other disagreements, and at least these are more important, although apparently healthcare subsidies are getting all the media attention, federal spending limits in general, and how much foreign aid the U.S. should be providing. So it's just not healthcare. There's some other things.
Well, yeah, but those are essentially budget dust. I mean, whenever anybody raises foreign aid as if that's going to actually bring the budget under control, it's such the things that are driving budget deficits are all part of mandatory spending, not discretionary spending. You're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the debt.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that lists here is total overall government spending. And,
Well-
and I think that the government spends too much money.
Well, sure.
So at some point, that's got to be addressed. The easy answer is, well, let's just spend more and make everybody happy. But that's, I think, got us where we are right now.
Well, but the issue though is that when you talk about government spending, you're almost always talking about discretionary spending. I mean, 2/3 of government spending goes out the door without Congress approving a penny of it. It's going out the door for entitlement benefits. It's going out the door for Social Security. It's going out the door for Medicare. It's going out the door for Medicaid. And it's also paying interest on the debt. They don't vote. Interest on the debt is the one thing that we really can't change other than, trying some sort of accounting tricks to try to get interest rates lower or whatever. But we can't just not pay that. We can't cut the amount we're going to pay on that. So if discretionary spending, and this is, if it's only 33% of the budget, then
it's 40. But we're dealing with billions now.
Well,
or trillions.
Yeah.
But
So and then you start talking about foreign aid. It's like, guys, you can cut essentially the defense budget to zero, and you'll still have a deficit if you don't manage all of these other programs, all these mandatory spending programs. And the Obamacare subsidies are part of that mandatory spending. So, I think we absolutely need to be talking about them and figuring out how to deal with them.
Yeah,
and Republicans are absolutely going about this the wrong way. It's just lunacy to try to sell this as, well, this is all just a giveaway to the illegals, because it isn't. We live in this sort of post-factual world now, where we're just supposed to take everything at face value and take everybody's interpretation of reality as being equal, and it isn't. Factually speaking, that money is not going to illegal aliens. You can point to a sliver of it that will go to treating illegal aliens in emergency rooms. And guess what? That money will still go, or that same amount of money will still go to treat illegal aliens in emergency rooms, because it's illegal to turn them away. So it's not as if, it's just maddening to me. So could we dive into the Canonizer camps then that we've got here?
Sure. I don't have anything other than the other camp. So Brent's is the only sub camp we have here.
Right.
And
that's basically, I think we should come up with a better way to propose a budget. But I think there's an underlying problem that's in a few years going to make all this look like, we're just not accomplishing anything right now. And it has to do with what Kelly says, the cost of medical insurance has gone up like 30% in 1 year. And that's the reason that's happening, and the reason it's so far above inflation is because the number of procedures and processes and drugs that can help is exploding exponentially. This pump that I wear, since I'm a type 1 diabetic, is a $7,000 piece of hardware, and it didn't exist a few years ago. I just had my retina I had some retina problems, and I just got a shot in the eye, and I've had that for about a year now, and I would be going blind by now if it wasn't for that. But that's $1,000 a shot, $1,000 a month, and again, that didn't exist a few years. And the number of those types of things is exploding exponentially, especially now that AI is working on it. It's going to explode exponentially, and the cost of all of those things, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to make us immortal eventually, and it's going to fix all of our problems. But getting to there is going to be very expensive, and we can't afford to do it for everyone, and we won't be able to say we're not going to turn everyone. I fear some point we're going to have to start rationing that because we won't be able to afford to give it all to everyone. When we first achieve immortality and solution to all those problems, it's going to be very expensive, and only the few are going to be able to afford it. So to me, that's once that kicks in a few years, all this kind of blather that everyone's going on about is meaningless. That's my feeling, and that's what scares me.
So once it kicks in a few years, you just don't think there's going to be nearly enough money to be able to provide quality health care for everybody.
Exactly. When you say quality healthcare, it's what's included in quality healthcare is exploding exponentially because they're discovering, like this new $1,000 a shot medicine. I would go blind without that. There'll be lots of that kind of stuff, and so someone's going to show up at the hospital, and they're about to go blind. And there will be a $10,000 procedure that will cure that guy, or some brain cancer or something like that, and he'll have a $100,000 procedure that'll cure that guy. But we won't be able to afford it all for everyone because we're going to have to be very poor for the next 10, 20 years because more and more of what we make, we're going to have to give up a lot to get eternal life, but it's going to be expensive and it's going to be worth it. But it's going to be very hard thing to achieve and get there because we can't afford it for everyone immediately as soon as it's available. And so I think there's going to be eventually we'll have AI and robots will do it all for us, and eventually we'll get there. But I feel that there's going to be a period when only the rich can afford it, and we won't be able to get it to everyone. And there's going to be some how do we force everyone to live very poor for a period of time so we can afford immortality, basically.
I have a little thing that looks factual. I am double checking it here, but the average American out of pocket last year for healthcare was $1,142. That I do not think that includes their insurance premium cost.
Oh yeah, there's no
but
way.
Obamacare folks they are paying $888 maximum if I'm looking at this right, which I could very well be wrong. And so the average and so if the subsidies don't continue at their current rate, the Obamacare subsidies, a person would have to pay about $1,800, which is less still than what people who are paying insurance premiums, if they have employer provided health care plus their other costs. So like there's got to be a number that everybody can afford. And I don't mind giving help to less fortunate people, but also like everybody can pay something. And I don't know that we're that far out of what the number should be.
For the time being, anyway.
Well, this sounds like something that is worthy of further discussion, and we invite everybody who is watching to go to Canonizer and to join the camp that best represents their point of view. And if you don't find a camp that represents your point of view, create a camp that represents your point of view. Because these are problems that aren't going away anytime soon, and it would be wonderful to be able to get a sense of where the consensus is so that we can work to get everybody what it is that they want. Does anybody else have any parting thoughts before we conclude this episode?
Yeah, I've got a better answer here. So the average American pays $1,500 a year in non-covered costs, so co-pays, things like that. Plus, they're paying an out-of-pocket $5,000 or so for their insurance premiums.
Yeah.
And so Obamacare, 5 to 10,000 is what it says. So I'm going the low end here. Obamacare is a fraction of that, and maybe it's time that we start having those insurances start being closer to what other people pay too, with some sort of help if people are really poor and families are poor. That was my final thing, and I'll make a camp for that. But no matter what, at some point, the government's got to open up and they got to do something, and they've got to talk. Maybe the Congress should be using Canonizer to figure stuff out.
Build consensus. Yeah, find out who's in what camp when, and watch Trump jump from camp to camp to camp as time goes on, as you look back across the history. But anyway, yeah.
All right, Brand, any other parting thoughts?
Nope, I think I got it all.
All right. Well, with that, we will conclude this episode, and we look forward to speaking with everybody again next week on our next episode of Consensus with Canonizer. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks all.
And I'm going to put that there. And sorry, technical difficulties.